All right. Hello, this is week one of the last fiscal quarter, and this is the Lost Confederacy channel. Today you'll have Chief Alligator, as well as myself, Chief Biko, and as always, we focus more so on that first letter in the acronym APOW, which is American. Again, we're going to continue to beat the drum in regards to our military occupation. So again, as always, we're going to start off with this video, just reiterating, hey, this system is infiltrated. It's not even infiltrated, it's just the system is working as it should be. And it's just highlighting what we've already known and already been explaining to you all. So without further ado, go ahead and start playing this video again. And hopefully it'll finally, ring off some alarm bells for you.
Anti-Defamation League's Center on Extremism is out with an in-depth analysis of there were hundreds of names on it of current or former elected official, law enforcement officers, and members of the military. The Oath Keepers are a far-right militia group, multiple members of which stormed the United States Capitol during the insurrection and that attack on January 6th. For more on this new report, CEO and National Director of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, joins us now. Jonathan, thanks for being with us. So take us through the report that you all did, how you got your hands on the list, and what were some of the more troubling aspects of what you found?
Sure. Thank you for having me this morning, Willie. And I will tell you, this is a chilling report, the likes of which we'd never released before. Last September, ADL analysts were able to get our hands on a data leak of the Oath Keepers membership rolls. There were 38,000 names that were essentially pulled from their records and put out in the open. Our analysts pulled down these open source techniques, including public records, social media, and other methods to review every single name that we found. And I must say, we thought the Oath Keepers were a threat when they rampaged through the Capitol on January the 6th, but we had no idea just how deep the threat truly is. We found hundreds of active law enforcement members who are part of the Oath Keepers, 10 chiefs of police, 11 sheriffs, dozens and dozens of active members of the U.S. military, some 80 individuals who were running for public office, almost 24 of whom made it through the primaries and will be up this fall. And look, you might not know all of these names. Many people might know Arizona State Senator Wendy Rogers, who still, months after the terror attack at the Capitol, proudly proclaimed that she was an Oath Keeper and supported the group. But I'm talking about a county commissioner in Nevada, a town justice in New York, a firearms instructor in Pittsburgh, a pastor in North Carolina, and it goes on and on and on. These are individuals with access and influence. These are individuals with resources and training. And these are individuals who have shown us they are willing to commit acts of sedition and violence against the U.S. government.
Jonathan, are you surprised at the extent of the membership of the Oath Keepers and other far-right groups who apparently, or maybe they do know, that the underpinnings of the philosophy of these groups are rooted in race and religion? In other words, they're against anybody who isn't white. And Jewish people obviously have a target on their backs based upon their philosophies. Does this surprise you at all that their membership is so diverse in a sense?
It somewhat does. I mean, look, right-wing extremism is a spectrum. We know that, Mike. And so there are white supremacists, there are sovereign citizens, and indeed, there are these armed militia groups. We know organizations like the Proud Boys. Tario, the head of it, is Hispanic. And indeed, there is some diversity among the Oath Keepers. But I think what's more frightening is the fact that they, for a long time, have prioritized recruiting active and retired law enforcement and military. We thought, Mike, they weren't being successful. We were wrong. We have a problem with an enemy inside our own ranks who has committed, as the Oath Keepers do, to uphold a higher oath, not to have fidelity to our commander-in-chief or necessarily to the jurisdictions where they work, but to their notion of the Constitution and a holy obligation that, again, puts minorities, puts Democrats, and puts ordinary citizens in their crosshairs.
CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt. Thank you very much for coming on this morning.
All right. So again, just another example of what we've been highlighting, our military occupation on our land. And again, it's at each level, the local level, whether it be your police officers, even down to your preachers and pastors, all the way up to your judges, and even politicians. So again, why do we continue to put our faith, our energy into the system, instead of one, removing ourselves from the system, and two, creating our own system? So that's a question you have to ask yourself as the viewer. And if you whatever answer you come up with, that's your answer. But as a group, if you want change, that's how it's going to have to come. With that being said, we're going to highlight one of our American inventors. So Chief Alligator, I'll let you go ahead and share your screen and drop the inventor for this week.
Let's see. This week's inventor is going to be George E. Beckett. And he lived in Rhode Island. U.S. patent number US 483-525. A is an alpha. And the invention date is October 4th, 1892. And he invented the mailbox for residences so that they could receive private mail. So we can see right here on this figure, you'll still see homes that have this setup. You can see the door here, and you can see where the mailbox slip is here so that your USPS Postal Service can just slide the mail matter into the door. So an American invented that. Now, we have two inventors that invented letterboxes. So we've done one previously, and his name is Philip Downing. However, Philip Downing they didn't create the same thing. So I'm just going to show real quick what Philip Downing do, the same American inventor. So when you see letterbox, one American invented the private mailbox or letterbox, and then Philip Downing actually invented the public mailbox, which is this one. So I just wanted to make that distinction between the two inventors of the letterbox. Philip Downing created this one, and today's inventor is George E. Beckett. He invented the one for your private residence. And we do not own and control these two industries, and we do not receive a percentage of income, nor do the families receive a percentage of income for this invention that they gave to the world. And that is today's American inventor.
Excellent inventor for this week, and also just goes right into the month of October. So we're about to actually celebrate this anniversary pretty much. Come the 4th, so come Tuesday could be the anniversary for that invention. Go ahead and share my screen for this week's Dr. Woodson quote. And it kind of just rhymes and highlights to pretty much what our theme will be for this week, and kind of pretty much moving forward, just in regards to the mindset we'll need to have if we want to seriously and ultimately break away from the system. And number 10 reads, Negroes do not need someone to guide them to what persons of another race have developed. They must be taught to think and develop something for themselves. It is most pathetic to see Negroes begging others for a chance, as we have been doing recently. Do not force us into starvation, we said. Let us come into your stores and factories and do a part of what you are doing to profit by our trade. The Negro, as a slave, developed this fatal sort of dependency and restricted mainly to menial service and drudgery during nominal freedom. He has not grown out of it. Now the Negro is facing the ordeal of either learning to do for himself or to die out gradually in the bread line in the ghetto. And this was written by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, basically over 100 years ago. And it still rings true to today. We just gave you another example of an American inventor who created a trade, but due to certain circumstances, as well as to our lack of fight as a group, have pretty much used our trade to go into this US government, these Europeans' way of life, and for them to profit off of our inventions, off of our trade, off of our knowledge. And we continue to, ask for these handouts instead of doing for self, as Dr. Carter G. Woodson explained in here. And that's only going to lead to one thing, and that is us gradually dying out in the ghetto, which is currently happening. We have millions of non-Americans coming into America, both legally and illegally, getting resources, benefits. Even if they are backed by nothing, they're still getting the coupon that is worthless while you get nothing. And they're moving into our neighborhoods, but again, getting at least these in-store only coupons that can only, of course, be used here to prop themselves up and actually make a way for, themselves, while we're stuck in these ghettos, gradually dying. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, what are we going to do about it? Are we just going to continue to, beg and plead for things that have never been given to us, no matter who you might think we need to vote into these positions, who you might think, as far as political party we need to vote for? It does not matter. As explained in the video before we started reading off our inventions, as well as the Dr. Woodson quote, they're infiltrated in every level, whether it be your police officer, your judge, or your politician. So what makes you think voting is going to get us out of this situation? And just to kind of bring this home to you all, it's almost like yourself and myself being a grown man or woman living underneath our foster parents' house and complaining about the rules that they have set up. You're a grown person, but you don't want to move out of that home and set up your own rules, but you'll rather complain to your foster parent about the rules that they have set for you, but you're not willing to move out and set up your own rules and establish your own thing. So if you're not willing to do that, then stop complaining.
Can you also let the viewers know what's the importance of Dr. Carter G. Woodson? Who is Dr. Carter G. Woodson to us, and why do we do a quote of him on a weekly basis?
He's the creator of Black History Month. You're going to use that term, American history. Well, he's the creator of that, so we have to, again, honor our ancestors. And that's what we do every week, by reading an inventor and by giving you guys this knowledge of self. If you don't know who you are, then you will never know where you're going. So definitely just want to say that. And I'll go ahead and continue with the maroon historical points and legal definitions. Legal definition number 1, American, indigenous to America. Number 2, descendants, one who follows in the bloodline of an ancestor, either lineally or collaterally. Number 3, slavery, a situation in which one person has absolute power over the life, fortune, and liberty of another. Number 4, prisoner of war, a person, usually a soldier, who is captured by or surrenders to the enemy in wartime. Number 5, school, any institution at which instruction is given in a particular discipline. Number 6, education, an enlightening experience. And number 7, recovery, a return to a normal state of health, mind, or strength, and the action or process of regaining possession of something stolen or lost, which is exactly what we do every week. And lastly, the maroon historical points. And I really want y'all to pay attention to these maroon historical points, because pretty much it's the blueprint of how we get out of this situation. So number 1 was a person escaping slavery, seeking freedom, or breaking the law. Number 2, providing unity and a strong defense came first. So in order for us to actually establish anything that we want to set forth, we have to be able to protect said thing. So if we don't have anybody willing to fight for it, then how the hell are we going to sustain that thing? You've never seen any business that does not have security. Plain and simple. Until we're willing to fight for ourselves, nobody is going to come trying to aid, lend a helping hand. Why would I risk my life for you when you're not even willing to defend your own life? That's silly. Nobody's going to do that, as they should. Number 3, Maroon leaders were first and foremost military figures. Just rhymes with number 2. Had to be able to protect ourselves. Military figures, if you look at every nation, their military figure is what the head of said nation is a military figure. They're in alignment. Why aren't we? Number 4, Maroons established guerrilla warfare, planting sharp sticks in thick grass. And number 5, Maroons knew their European enemies' language, defenses, and plans. And that's what we do every weekend. We break down their structure. We highlight the flaws in their structure, and we call them out on their bullshit. And we have to all be like this.
Can you go to the legal definitions and just highlight the prisoner of war one? Because that's going to tie into everything we're going to do tonight. So we can bounce back and forth so they can see why we say on this channel and why we're explaining to viewers of this channel that we're prisoners of war. It's not slavery.
That's correct. So again, let's go ahead and read off this definition. A person, usually a soldier, who is captured by or surrenders to the enemy in wartime. So again, remembering that definition, keep that in the back of your head as we go through what we'll go through today, as far as just showing the maps and showing exactly why we say we're prisoners of war on our own land. With that, you want to go ahead and just jump into the first one?
Yeah, let's go ahead and let's get into number 1, the first one.
All right, so the first map we're going to show here, map of Indian tribes of North America, about 1600 AD along the Atlantic, and about 1800 AD westwardly. So let's scroll down here, and let me know if I need to make it clearer or anything like that.
Yeah, click on it so it'll get rid of all the.
Let me see here.
Oh, okay. All right. Yep.
All right.
Can we go to the table on every map? Not the table, the key first on every map, so the viewer can understand what we're looking at.
Okay. Is it clear to you?
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. So, okay. The key here is basically just showing exactly the American tribes on this land. Again, the map read about 1600 AD, even up to about 1800 AD. So as we can see here, this key is highlighting exactly which tribe and associating them with a specific color. So as we see here, Eskimo, we got Iroquois, Cherokee, Choctaw, Sioux, Pawnees. So as we go here, we're able to see exactly which nations, or which tribes rather, were in each respective area. So here, you got the Choctaws as well as the Chickasaws. And it's definitely even highlighting why they had a treaty together during 1866, even though we know that was invalid. We got the Muskogees, or the Creeks, Seminoles as well, Cherokee above them, the Catawbas. Try to zoom in here. Up north here is where you will find Iroquois, Ottawas, and of course, a lot more different various tribes. But again, what we're painting here, people, is that these were our territories. So we're just, thinking back on last week, if these so-called chiefs of these respective tribes that they've taken, as you can see, pretty much all of the names in the southeastern area of North America, if they're saying if their constitution is saying that they started, pretty much after 1830, then they aren't truly the Americans. Because this map alone is saying that this is 1600 all the way up to about 1800. So it predates whatever their constitution is saying. And you can clearly see that they're all east of the Mississippi. All of these nations that were in that 1866 Indian Treaty hearing. Do you want to kind of build off of that, Chief Alligator?
Right. And we just want to keep in mind that the United States government, this is their record from their library. Mm-hmm. So the same government that contracted with the fake 5 civilized tribes in Indian Territory. Can you move your cursor along what's the Mississippi River? So somebody viewing this video can kind of get an understanding of what we're saying. So that's the Mississippi River. And what happened in 1866 is a bunch of unlawful treaties were made, and all of these tribes, as Chief Biko said, that are in the Southeast region, which what we've heard of, or what I've heard of during my life growing up, is the Bible Belt, below the Dixie line. Nowadays, we say Dirty South. Without us knowing it subconsciously, we know where we originate from. So what we have now is a bunch of Asians and Europeans claiming to be our great grandparents. And because we're disconnected, because we believe culture is strictly entertainment and music, that went right over our heads when they had that Indian treaty a couple of weeks ago. So we're just showing proof of claim from the Library of Congress, going through this United States government's own records. And that's been the most constructive way, I believe, in order to challenge this system, is to reverse engineer it. But that means you got to take the time and you got to actually go through it and look at the timeline. And there's a lot of loopholes and flaws. And that's the purpose of this channel, is to just expose it. You can't tell the truth and not be consistent. So what we're showing here is a blatant lie. The people in Oklahoma are not the original Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, or Seminole.
Mm-hmm.
That's it on that one. That's all I got on that one.
Absolutely. We'll go ahead and exit out of this one. Let's see. We'll go ahead and move into our next map. And again, just like the map before, all of this is coming out of their Congress, their Library of Congress. So these aren't maps that we just, Googled, aren't maps that we come up with ourselves. These are all maps provided by this government. So again, as I stated before, we're just using whatever resources they have to call them out on their lie. Go ahead and expand this one. All right, so if we go to the key, it clearly says King James Patent of 1606, dividing Virginia into 2 parts, the Plymouth Company and the London Company. So question, it's clearly saying a patent. We read off patents every week. Patents give you ownership. Patents can give you, you can use that to create a business, or in this example, a company. So I want you guys to kind of keep that in the back of your heads there. So if we see here, we got Plymouth Company being the yellow. We have London Company being the red. And then we have a mixture of both. So pretty much it looks like they're kind of pretty much combining with both of these areas here along this east coast of North America. And again, it's 1606. And as we showed in that last map, all of this is ours. All of this is our territory as the American. Now I'll go ahead and read this here. The patents of the Plymouth and London companies in 1606 extend 100 miles from the coast and overlap each other 3 degrees of latitude from 38 degrees to 41 degrees. Neither company, however, was to make a settlement within 100 miles of one already made by the other. So again, neither company. So what this is showing me is that the United States government is obviously a corporation, a company, a business. It was established by King James's patent and given to two companies, one being the Plymouth Company and the other being London. And as we see here, they, by no means and no contracts with the actual Americans, are just claiming these areas here. And again, this is 1606. So companies establishing patents for these areas. It says 100 miles from the coast inland. And then they pretty much are going to share this area here, both the Plymouth and London Company. Anything else you wanted to kind of hit on with this particular map?
Yeah. So what we're looking at right here is from an ownership standpoint, this king of another land, he's laying out his business plan, which is this patent. And this is a very crucial map and a very crucial document because we've been hearing since 2019 about the 400-year mark from the time that the first quote unquote slaves landed in America by way of the European. So what we have to understand from a business standpoint is prior to 1619, 1606, which is what this map is showing, is when he took his ideas and put it on paper and actually made it real. He declared that he was going to claim this land through two companies. This is where your wars are going to start in what's known as the Iroquois Confederacy, because a king from another land can't claim another king's land or other chief's land. And so we have to remember that as we walk down this timeline throughout the 16, 17, and 1800s. This is where we're going to get 400 years worth of wars in North America, because that king does not have the right to say that I'm going to set up shop on this land. So this is the ground floor before the 1619. It had to come here first. He had to think in order to grow rich. Shout out to him, because Europe was in dire straits at that time, and they needed other ways of creating income. So when we hear about the Plymouth and the Mayflower boats coming over, bringing over pilgrims, that couldn't happen until he first patented his idea. Then it took him another, 1619? So it took him another 13 years to get the resources together to start shipping Europeans from Europe to North America. So that's a critical component, and we have to look at it from all degrees. But yeah, we can see that there was a 13-year window from him getting his paperwork in order to actually financing it and actually sending ships over here with the pilgrims/peasants.
That will lead us into our third map. Again, all within order. So this one here is 1609. 1609, the reorganization of the Plymouth Company in 1620 as the Council of Plymouth for New England. And I'll go ahead and read this off. Back out. The Virginia Charter of 1609 bounded the London Company to the land between points 200 miles north and 200 miles south of Point Comfort throughout from sea to sea, west and northwest. The Plymouth Charter of 1620 fixed the limits of the Plymouth Company between 40 degrees and 48 degrees. Virginia's claim of a west and northwest time. This is the time. I believe it says time there. But again, just comparison between the two maps. So the first map that we just saw, Chief Alligator, that was 1606, right?
Correct.
Okay. And this is showing 1609 to 1620. So as Chief Alligator was stating, he was putting his ideas on paper. And as you see here, he's already thinking of growth within our land. Not only just on that East Coast portion, pretty much from Virginia up to, I believe this would probably be Delaware, New Jersey area, New York. But now he's expanding into present day Canada, as well as east or west into North America.
Now let's add one thing in. How is he generating revenue? Just looking at this map from a king standpoint. He's got two separate entities. So what's coming out of that yellow area? You see what I'm saying? What kind of finance is being, because every time he sends colonists over here, they have to pay that tax back to him. Right? So if you want to get even smaller in the details, you can actually drill down and find out what type of income resource was he getting from the yellow area? What type of income resource was he getting from the red area? Because it's two separate companies, I'm willing to bet he's got separate industries and separate things going on. Yep.
Correct. Great point. Great point. And I like the way you posed it too on that, because it is a business plan that he's setting forth. I'm going to have, I believe the yellow was the London Company, I believe. And then the Plymouth Company, we're going to have you guys do two separate things. So whatever your duties are or what I've hired you for to bring back is strictly for yours. So pretty much setting up a monopoly as well for these two companies in regards to any type of resources that they're finding to bring back to that king.
Right. And we have to keep in mind there's wars going on, but we're just looking at one side of the coin, which is the European side right now. This has nothing to do with us.
Correct.
Even though today we're speaking English, which speaks of the dominance that they were able to do to this landmass. We have to remember the king from another landmass is starting to impose his will in the 1600s. And as we do this video, we're going to be showing you how religion comes with this. And this is a very touchy subject for the prisoner of war on this land, but we're just going to show you the proof of claim. Christianity, Catholicism, that was not here until 1606, once this man took this idea and made it real. But we'll get into it.
And just to kind of piggyback off of that, because it's going to pretty much show itself as we continue to go through these maps. The 3 M's pretty much is what he's referring to. So you got your military, your merchant, as well as your missionaries. So right now, and kind of going back to what you were stating, if they're able to collect these resources or try to even, expand to these areas, it has to be some type of trade that may be even, being done with the Americans. Definitely warn, but also, okay, let's see what we can kind of do without picking up the gun in this case, even though we'll eventually get to that anyway. But let's see what they have. Let's try to, befriend them, see what resources they have, bring back. Okay, they showing us where they're getting these. Now we can take them out, type of thing. So the 3 M's definitely military, merchants, as well as missionaries. So as we move forward to this map, a new map of North America from the latest discovery. And this is 1763. Back out here. Let's see if this one. Okay, this one doesn't have an exact key.
Right, and then the importance of this map, if you can kind of zoom in around the purple area on that East Coast area and slide your cursor up around where Pennsylvania would be. You see Maryland, Pennsylvania. Now, right to the left of that, you see it says Confederate Indians. Now, what's the date on this map again?
1763.
1763.
Correct.
The people who are watching this video, keep your mind in alignment. These people initially come from English kings. The people who revolted against the English kings became the United States government. The United States government was not founded until July 4th, 1776. This map predates the United States government, and so it also shows who the Confederates really were. The Confederates are the Americans. This is before their Constitution. This is before their fake Civil War. That's the importance of this map right here. And we have to kind of, you know, we're showing, it's going to be hard if you're watching this and this is your first time being introduced to this information, but that's why we provide proof of claim, because it's a recovering of the mind. A Negro is somebody who doesn't know who he is. And so the purpose of this channel is you can't do politics or business until you first know who the fuck you are. And as a group of people, we're doing the work. We're trying to figure out who we are, but we're not willing to take the time and be patient enough to really walk through this thing. So we are the Confederates. Chief Biko, you can go ahead and shoot your jump shot from there.
No, definitely. And as you highlight, just again, we are the Confederates. And whenever you have some time, we'll definitely go ahead and link all of these maps. Go ahead and just, you know, scan wherever your family originates from, because more than likely it's going to be one of these tribes you can really trace it back to. So as you see here, Northern Iroquois, right above where it says Confederate Indians. Let's see here, Miami's, Illinois. Let's see, the Ottawas. And then again, down here, you'll see exactly pretty much what we was highlighting before. So we got Creek, Muskogee, Chickasaws, Choctaws, Cherokee, so et cetera and et cetera. But again, just highlighting exactly who we were, which is the Confederacy. And again, this predates their Articles of Confederation, which they got from us, in particular the Iroquois Confederacy. This predates their Constitution. So this predates all of these, you know, documents that this government stands on. But again, it just highlights who actually showed them how to even do this, which would be the American.
One correction. It doesn't predate their Articles of Confederation, but it does predate their Constitution.
The Articles, okay.
Yeah, the Articles, that's the first thing they set up when they broke away from their king.
Okay.
And so that's where we get mixed up in school. We think we were a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
We're clearing up is that shit had nothing to do with us. That American Revolution, them fighting their king, saying no taxation without representation, that shit had nothing to do with us. That was infighting amongst Europeans and melanated Europeans.
Facts. Great point. So that moves us to the fifth map here. So 1763, an accurate map of North America describing and distinguishing the British and French dominions of this great continent, according to the definitive treaty concluding at Paris, the 10th of February, 1763. All right.
Now, if you can scroll in, I'm just going to read that first section of that article, because this is between British and French, both European, but this Treaty of Paris, again, it's on another landmass and it's dealing with other rulers. We had our own rulers over here, but they're negotiating land and resources on our land, and there's one flaw in their document. We're not a part of it. So they're doing deals without having the American leaders at the table. That's why they've been able to wage unlawful war on us without us realizing it, because even though they have their differences as Europeans, they still are on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of them were broke and destitute, and they were all looking for new resources in order to keep their people afloat, keep their governments afloat. So I'm gonna just read that one article to the left. Well, I'll read that key area you just had it over first, just so the viewer can understand. Yep. An accurate map of North America describing and distinguishing the British and French dominions on this great continent according to the definitive treaty concluded at Paris 10th February 1763. That word dominion, you've heard that in Genesis and in their religious books. Remember, King James paid X amount of people to write up that book. So you understand that this is a spiritual thing for the European. They're coming to a new land and they're claiming dominion over it. And they're doing it through this Treaty of Paris. So I'll just read this one article because this one is all right, so we're doing Article 6. Let's back out just a little. Okay. Article of the Definitive Treaty. His most Christian Majesty renounces, right there, most Christian Majesty renounces all pretensions which has heretofore formed or might form to Nova Scotia or Acadia in all its parts and guarantees the whole of it and with all its dependencies to the King of Great Britain. So we got a Christian Majesty giving over what he's saying is his, that's really not, to the King of Great Britain. Moreover, his most Christian Majesty cedes and guarantees to his said Britannic Majesty in full right Canada with all its dependencies, as well as the island of Cape Breton and all the other islands and coast in the Gulf and River of St. Lawrence, and in general, everything that depends on the said country's lands, islands, and coasts with the sovereignty, property, profession, and all rights acquired by treaty or otherwise, the most Christian king and the crown of France have had till now over the said countries, islands, places, coasts, and their inhabitants. They're playing God. They are playing God right now. And shout out to them. Their belief system, they have every right to believe in what they want to believe in. But you can see he's claiming from Canada all the way to the Gulf, and he's now giving it to the King of Great Britain. From a religious standpoint. Where we at?
Most Christian here.
The most Christian king cedes and makes over the whole to the said king and to the crown of Great Britain, and that in the most ample manner and form, without restriction and without any liberty to depart from the said cession and guarantee under any pretense, or to disturb Great Britain in the professions above mentioned. His Britannic Majesty on his side agrees to grant the liberty of the Catholic religion to the inhabitants. So we got this Christian king giving everything to the Great Britain king. Now we're going to hear the terms that the Great Britain king has to adhere to for getting all this land from Canada to the Gulf. This Christian king is saying, let my people still remain Catholic. Catholic religion to the, His Britannic Majesty on his side agrees to grant the liberty of the Catholic religion to the inhabitants of Canada. He will consequently give the most effectual orders that his new Roman Catholic subjects may prefer the worship of their religion according to the rites of the Roman Church, as far as the laws of Great Britain permit. You just converted these people into Catholicism.
Subjects.
Help me out. Where we at?
Is it right to the Roman Church as far as the laws of Great Britannia?
Got you. As far as the laws of the Great Britain permit, His Britannic Majesty further agrees that the French
inherits.
Inheritrates or others who had been subjects of the most Christian king in Canada may retire with all safety and freedom wherever They shall think proper and may sell their estates, provided it to be subjects of his Britannic Majesty. So he's going to allow them to be able to sell property that's not theirs, because remember, there's Americans with tribes and confederacies in that land. This is where our wars are coming in. So we got a religious group of people coming to us. We got two different belief systems going on. That's about to clash. And bring away their effects as well as their persons without being restrained in their immigration under any pretense whatsoever, except that of debts or of criminal prosecution. So they're saying you can move wherever you want to move. You can sell your estate if you want to, but you're going to pay what you owe. And if you've got a crime that you committed, I got to have that ass. The term limited for this immigration shall be fixed to the space of 18 months, to be computed from the day of the exchange of the ratifications of the present treaty. And we'll go to the top real quick to finish it off. Lords. Let me move these windows so I can see it. Okay. And his Britannic Majesty consented to leave the subjects of the most Christian king the liberty of fighting in the Gulf of St. Lawrence on condition that the subjects of France do not exercise the said fishery. So you can still fight in that area, but you can't catch and sail anything no more.
Oh, no, you can still fish. It look like fishing in the Gulf.
You sure? Okay.
It's still allowing them to fish on that condition, but do not exercise.
Okay, that's a crazy looking S. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what they penmanship was doing on certain letters. It looked like fishing in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Okay.
All right, so let me read it again then. And his Britannic Majesty consented to leave the subjects of the most Christian king the liberty of fishing in the Gulf of St. Lawrence on condition that the subjects of France do not exercise the said fishery. So you can fish, but you can't sell it. But at the distance of 3 leagues from all the coasts belonging to Great Britain, as well those of the continent as those of the islands situated in the said Gulf of St. Lawrence, and as to what relates to the fishery on the coast of the island of Cape Breton, out of the said Gulf, the subjects of the most Christian king shall not be permitted to exercise the said fishery. So they roping them off. They roping them off. But at the distance of 15 leagues from the coast of the island of Cape Breton, and the fishery on the coast of Nova Scotia or Acadia, and everywhere else out of the said Gulf, shall remain on the foot of former treaties. So the issue with this treaty is this is amongst Europeans, and the American leaders were not aware of what these people got going on across the Atlantic Ocean.
Correct.
All they know is they're going to see boats of different groups of people coming onto their land, operating in commerce and moving accordingly. And that's what
on paper. And just that's when you see when they come up on the land and they read off scrolls, they like, I really don't give a fuck what you're reading, because you never read this. These were never our terms. So when you see those cartoons and, you know, or what's it, Pocahontas come on and they're reading these scrolls, this is what they're reading. But again, they never made these deals with the actual Americans. That's a great point.
But it also ties in that they have something they're willing to die for, because their king is sending them out on edicts.
Yeah.
And so they're moving in an accordance that is do or die.
Yeah.
Now, our ancestors was washing them because we've read the treaties. There's been war ever since these people came here. We've just forgotten what our ancestors were doing since these people came over here with their religion. What do you want to call it? It's almost like what the Vietnamese and the Afghanistan people do, or any group of people do that when foreigners attack their land, like the suicide bombers, how they'll kill themselves
in the name of
religion.
Facts.
That's what they're doing when they came to
yeah.
America.
Facts. And it's crazy you said that, because they try to make one look worse than the other, but that's exactly what they were doing when fighting us and trying to conquer this land. Even highlights back to the manifest destiny, which will come much later, but still that belief of, we have not only our king's backing, but our God's backing.
I'm finna say something to you.
We're doing this for that. Go ahead.
We can never get the power from the Bible that the European gets from it, because your leaders did not write that book. King James of Europe ordered scribes to write that book.
Right.
So the European gets empowered by it historically from a different standpoint, because they can trace from a lineage standpoint that that's their book. What we've done is we try to hold claim to it and wonder why you don't get the power that the European gets from it. It's not your shit. I'm gonna stop right there.
And what we've done is, like you said, try to insert ourselves, like we've done with the Freedmen's Bureau, like we've done with the 13th through 15th Amendment. We're trying to insert ourselves on these fields and these characters, but they don't pertain to you. So you're never going to get that empowerment, like you said, or that inspiration, because it's not for you. And for some reason, we continue to try to grab at certain things when it's like, okay, remove everything from here. Who were the original people on here? And that's what you need to go and grab onto. The maroon historical points, that is your religion. Plain and simple. Military figures were first, leaders were first and foremost military figures. Like, these are the steps, but we've come so far removed because we're trying to attach ourselves to this, these indoctrination materials, and it hasn't worked out for you. So again, why not try something different? That was an excellent point there.
Back out of the map. Let's not exit out yet. Let's just see what the rest of just the map itself. I just wanted to do that article on that treaty. That was number 5.
Correct.
Yep.
So see here. So he's basically saying that the Catholic Majesty has ceded all of this to the King of Britain.
The Christian Majesty.
The Christian Majesty.
Mm-hmm. So they're going to take people from Christianity to Catholicism.
Okay. So this whole area. So that was the business deal between these two European countries.
Correct. And what date is on that map one more time?
I believe it's 1763, I want to say.
Yep.
See if it shows it.
Yep.
Okay,
so 1763. Let's scroll back over to the Mississippi River, because we still want to narrow down on these fake civilized tribes in Oklahoma. This is prior to that still. And you can still see where these tribes come from. Everything was east of the Mississippi. So the fact that you got these 5 fake nations in Oklahoma, and they never mention where they came from, because to mention where they came from, they have to talk about us. And that's what we're calling them out on. You never talk about where it originates from, because then you got to talk about the prisoner of war, which has been reclassified as Negro, Black, colored, Afro-American, minority, and now people of color.
Correct. Great point. And they know they were there in these areas because, again, they highlighted it. They documented it themselves. You see the Chickasaws, you see the Choctaws, Cherokees, Creek, Stolen. So they knew exactly which tribes were in these territories, but again, they didn't think they knew not to even try to include them within these deals that you pretty much just read there.
And one last point, 1763, the last colony, which is Georgia, was established in 1773, so 10 years later. But you can already see that King James from England already had in his mind what Georgia was going to be. Look what Georgia was in 1770 and 1763. It was established in 1773 by James Oglethorpe. But notice this is before Alabama, before Mississippi. Georgia went from Savannah all the way to the Mississippi River, and it was a military buffer state. Just wanted to add that in as well for the viewer that can look at this map and look at the time date on it.
As you can see here, it even shows what this says formerly, maybe a little hard to read, but it's formerly the French. So again, just highlighting that area as well. But that's a great point. Use Georgia as a military buffer state to stop them from going into Florida. And that was 5, yeah. Number 6, a new and accurate map of the British dominions in America, according to the Treaty of 1763, divided into several provinces and jurisdictions, projected upon the best authorities and astronomical observations.
So we're just going to give an illustration of that one article that I read out, that Treaty of Paris, so they can see. And pay attention again to those who are viewing this map. There is no Alabama, there is no Mississippi in 17, what date is that on this map?
This one is
1763. So we can see how our minds are warped because we only know North America based on their cutting up the pie, if you will. We only know America by their states that they've established. We can't think back prior to what it was.
Great point. Great point.
There is no Oklahoma at this point. There is no Kentucky. There's nothing west of the Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
They have not gone that far yet. They're still catching hell with the tribes and the Confederacies east of the Mississippi. In 1763, we're going at it.
East Florida. West Florida.
So one last thing on that, even if you look at Florida, there's no Seminole Wars yet. So you notice there's no Jacksonville. Andrew Jackson hasn't militarily named Jacksonville after him. None of that's there yet.
None of those forts.
Correct. We have that area is still us. That's that's us operating, doing business. And it really just exposes how this slave narrative, it just doesn't rhyme with history if you take the time and just go down the timeline.
Right.
You can't have slaves and have wars at the same time. And the only group of people that's been in every war on this land is us.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Yeah, she's just highlighting it. Again, it's 1763. Still running shit. Still running shit. Like you stated, Georgia, what? 1773, so 10 years later. So he's just mapping out what he would like Georgia to be, a separation between Carolina and Florida. And that's exactly what is highlighted here. You can see the perforated lines of where
who was actually there. Not stopping your bill. Who was actually there when he wrote Georgia across?
Mm-hmm.
Lower Creeks was in that area.
Correct. Lower Creeks. Shoot, what was it? The Yamasee, because that was pretty much one of the reasons why he even wanted to establish Georgia. States getting their ass whooped by the Yamasee during the Yamasee Wars. So yeah, Lower Creeks had some Cherokees, Chinookori, all different type of American tribes.
Upper Creeks right above in that South Carolina area. You got Upper Creeks. Then you got Lower Cherokee right above the South Carolina word. right above South Carolina, Lower Creek, Lower Cherokee. So this is all our land, even though, but it's like they lay an imaginary map over what's ours and then schooled us into their jurisdictions through their school system.
Right, because this is all it is. If we're thinking back, you know, it may be a little predated for some of the viewers, but I'm pretty sure yourself and anybody pretty much over the age of, I say 25 remembers those projectors. Is that projector used to be see-through? You put it on, then you could put something on top of it and mark it. That's all this is. So they just pretty much showing, okay, this is Chickasaw land, this is mid Cherokee, upper Cherokee, you know, upper Creeks, blase, blase. But we're going to transpose our map over this to show what we are trying to establish. Because again, this isn't established yet. This isn't established, a great point. And lastly, we should be able to go ahead and finish off on the 7th map and continue for next week. But this one again, just an accurate map of North America describing and distinguishing the British, Spanish, and French dominions on this great continent, exhibiting the present seat of war and the French encroachments, also all the West India islands belonging to and possessed by the several European princes and states. And this is a great map to kind of end on because it's just showing how we're pretty much being surrounded by 3 European countries here. Let me see. All right, perfect. So again, the map of North America. So you got British, Spanish, and French claiming dominion on this great continent, exhibiting the present seat of war. So again, war being established by these 3 European nations, but let's see exactly what's going on here. So let me see if they have it color coordinated on the key. And then here. Trying to see if they have it named. But this East Coast looked like it'll be. Okay, this is showing New England. So this whole East Coast is going to be Britain or Great Britain or the British there.
Correct.
Then we have, see, I don't have it color coordinated. I would guess this would be the French just coming off the Louisiana Purchase.
Correct.
And this middle portion would be Spanish.
Correct.
So we're thinking about the previous maps that we've been, looking at, and then transposing this on top of that. We saw exactly where our nations, our tribes were. Still have Lower Creek, Upper Creek, Middle Creek, Upper Creek, so forth, so on. So we're still here, but you can see the occupation, the military war and military occupation that's being had on our people from 3 different European nations.
And the time stamp on this one is 1767. And again, debunking the 1866 Indian Treaty. This is before Indian Territory.
Or is this 17?
1767.
67, okay.
So you can see how we're being surrounded by these different European kingdoms in wartime. We've got the English that we're fighting, we've got Spain that we're fighting, and we've got French that we're fighting.
So go ahead.
No, at this point we're surrounded. We can't retreat west of the Mississippi because we're going to run into the French. And before we run into the French, we're going to run into the Spanish. And that reddish color And then we're currently, wherever we live at in that Creek Confederacy area, everything south of Virginia, we're fighting the Spanish and we're fighting the English.
Correct.
So let's not get it twisted that our ancestors were slaves. This was a world war that they never document in world history as such. This was the first world war before 1913.
Facts. This was the very first World War. So you have three European countries on American soil waging war against the American and their various tribes. So if the viewer remembers, just taking you back to the 1866 Indian Treaty with the Choctaws and Chickasaws, they mention the Kansas Americans quite a lot. Go up here, we see Kansas Nation, among other different American nations and tribes as well. So in order for them, or for the 1830 Indian removal to even take place, this had to be cleared out, or at least some portions of it. So as you can all see, I mean, pretty much it's clear as day that they were all in alignment with what the goal was: wipe out the American, take over all its resources, military occupy the American, to continue to eat off them for as long as possible we can. So yeah, don't let the indoctrination books tell you any different as far as them, waging war against each other. No, they would all joined in hand to accomplish this goal.
Well, let's be even more real about it, man. We've done the work, Chief Biko. There's no school for this shit. You have to be able to think outside the box, because you're not going to go to anybody's school and get this information. And shout out to a platform like YouTube that allows free thinkers to be able to put the other side of the coin on display. And so our people just have to kind of just, again, recover and just walk away from the indoctrination for a minute of what you learned in school and educate yourself, as Dr. Carter G. Woodson told us. There's no school for this shit we doing, Chief Biko.
No, facts. Absolutely not. But it's great to see to kind of use that to call out the bullshit when you actually do the education for yourself. Because then you say, okay, they said this, but okay, all these maps, all these documents saying something different. They all got a good portion of our land that they're occupying and fighting us, the American, while bringing all of these resources back to somewhere across here. So that just highlights another point. They can never be the American. One, they're representing these countries east of the Atlantic.
Yep. So we broke this one down. We'll get to that. We'll walk it down. We're on 8 now, so we got 5 more.
This would be 1772 here.
And this just a quick one just to show, which we already know, but who was in Georgia. So once again, we just, repetition is the mother of learning. So this map.
See, do it this way.
Yep, you can see Creek and you can see Cherokee and what we now know is the estate of Georgia.
The Indian lands, Georgia. Yep. Okay.
So the Creek chief and the Cherokee chief of the fake tribes in Oklahoma, you're not mentioning where these tribes originate from, because to mention them, you got to talk about us. That's that for that one to speak for itself.
Moving on to 1777, the map of the land ceded by the Cherokee Indians to the state of South Carolina at a Congress held in May 1777, containing about 1,697,700 acres.
Correct. So what in our minds, if you think you're going to go to the state of South Carolina to do anything, you have not recovered, North Carolina, your mind is not aligned because that's not what your ancestors called that area. North Carolina is a European setup colony that turned state.
As you can see here, above, shoot, let me pull it back up. We go here, it says Cherokee land. And then right even into Chief Alligator was alluding to what the Europeans called North Carolina. So all of this is just Cherokee land.
Correct. And we can see lower towns, and that rhymes with all the towns that were burned of ours in the late 1800s going into the early 1900s with the undeclared Seminole War. It all rhymes when you say, oh, we had Rosewood, we had Wall Street, we had all this shit.
All this shit, yeah. Yeah. Let me see this. 9-something-6 district.
So this next map will bring us to 1883, which according to American government timeline, we've had unlawful Seminole Wars, we've had a fake Civil War, we've had an American Removal Act, right? So now we can see Indian Territory. So now, from 1606 to 1883, we're talking about over 250 some odd years. Now we can see how much ground we've lost based on those previous maps that you showed. You can go ahead and shoot your jump shot.
Absolutely. Just highlighting here, no longer even see our American tribes names mentioned. Now you have Jackson. Now you have Montgomery, Nashville. When we just showed, this would have been considered Lower Creek, Middle Creek, Upper Creek, Cherokee, our lands. So as you can see in 1883, now this is all occupied by the European, by the US citizen there. And then we have these nations, which we know exactly where they come from. Choctaw, that's here. Choctaw and Chickasaw. Creek, that's all here. Cherokee, all here, all pretty much east of the Mississippi. So if we're going back to this 1866 Indian Treaty hearing, when these folks talking about, their constitution and stuff established these nations during this time, we know that's a blatant lie. Yeah, maybe them nations, but as far as these names, predate that by hundreds of years. And I'm not sure what these numbers mean, if this is supposed to be representative of like the population. But we already know in their documents, be that they may, be invalid. They already knew in, I believe one of those treaties, maybe Treaty of Paynes Land and Moultrie Creek, that majority of, I believe it was the Creeks, were still east of the Mississippi. But again, just highlights the roping off of the people in the military occupation, in particular of that southeast region of North America, the Creek Confederacy.
Correct. Now, if we can just bounce, well, we don't have to bounce back to it, but I'm just thinking about the definition of prisoner of war. Everybody that was moved by the United States government's military into Indian Territory, those were POWs, and everybody who did not go into Indian Territory that eventually was either captured or incarcerated or hung or killed, and you wonder why they never had any murder trials or did not get any justice through the European system, it's because you're prisoners of war.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now, as he stated, we catch you being an American, any of these quote unquote states, is on site. Because again, military war or prisoner of war rather is a person, usually a soldier, captured. So if we captured all of your persons, your soldiers here, we catch you out here, we still at war, even though we never declared it with you. So it's on site. So that's where you get your hangings, your lynchings, your burning of towns, different things of that nature.
And let's not give them credit and say all of them were soldiers in that Indian territory. Those people look Asian, and those were also peasants from Europe. And we know that to be because if you go to these nations' websites and look at who they're claiming to be, all of those people are frauds. They're not us. And it's just amazing how they can only be that bold with their lies at this point because they're heavily invested that the school system has brainwashed the American so that they can stand up in front of the world and claim to be us at this point. That's really what's going on for them to be that bold with it.
That's a good map, tie everything in. And that was map, I believe, 10, yeah. So this map here, a map of the former territorial limits of the Cherokee Nation of Americans. Map showing the territory originally assigned Cherokee Nation of Americans, plate 8. So going here, this is 1884. Again, Cherokee Nation, secession colonies. Not sure what this key here is. Treaty. So this looks like dates of when treaties were signed. But again, as we stated before, Congress has the right to declare war. And if treaties are supposed to end wars and Congress never declared war, there's no documentation, nothing, then all of those treaties will be invalid.
Let's go up to those treaties real quick. That was a good observation. What's it say at the top? An American chronological schedule, of Cherokee secessions. Okay, so we see one is with a Governor Glenn of South Carolina. You can't do that. A governor is not a Congress. Governor Nicholas of South Carolina can't do that. British Superintendent of Indian Affairs. Yeah, so none of this. What says Congress on here? You got states ceding land.
Correct.
Now we say federal period, they're saying United States in 1785.
Back in the Western North Carolina.
And we can see there's a lot of commas here, but a lot of area missing. But what you're not going to see is what we know is Florida. And based on what we're seeing here, Georgia, everything is blank down here. So all we're really doing, people, is we're just intellectually just reverse engineering their own constitution. And if they're saying that Congress is the only one that can declare war, and if that's the case, then for every treaty, they have to also provide a document where their Congress declared a war, and they can't do it. But you're not supposed to have the time, or you're not supposed to make time to actually go through and walk through this process.
It's supposed to be all of the lands ceded by, let's see, the Cherokee.
But they're telling us that Cherokee is in Indian Territory, not Oklahoma.
Right. So again, just calling out them on their bullshit. And again, just highlighting the unlawful war being waged on the American and the fraudulent treaties made that pretty much end these wars that were never declared.
That'll take us to 12. So we got 2 more and we'll shut it down.
So a map of the linguistic stocks of American of the Americans here. And this map is, let me back up. Make sure we have a date.
This is going to be 1890.
1890, okay.
And this is strictly military. This has to be military scouts to even account for what language Americans were speaking.
In 1890, in 1892. So my question is, okay, so they're clearly identifying the language that people from these regions are speaking, which will still be the American in 1890. Or are they saying based off of where they wrote them off from, they're highlighting, just pretty much putting two and two together. Okay, we knew this was the Creek Confederacy. So this is what language would have been spoken in this area, Seminoles, vice versa, things of that nature. What do you, okay.
Because you got to remember, from a commerce standpoint, they're doing business with different tribes and different confederacies. So they're going to remember, they account for everything. So like, okay, when we're in this area, these people speak Muskogean, these people speak Iroquoian. Yeah, but from an American standpoint, this just further shows this whole English language thing is new to us. So when they said we couldn't read and they try to make it sound like we were dumb in the 1890s, no, we spoke a different language, had a different belief system. All of this really we didn't really convert to where we are now until next century, where we're about to go after this video.
Correct, because we're already in 1890. So they're highlighting the language that was being spoken by the people in these areas. And okay, now you can see the picture why they can try to mock any of, our ancestors who may have been in these, prisoner of war camps, and they're speaking these languages. Oh, you don't know how to talk. No, you're speaking one of these languages that you see on the screen.
Correct.
And lastly, number 13, is going to bring us in the 1892 map showing Indian reservations within the limits of the United States. Back up here.
So by the turn of the century, we're nowhere near as organized as we were 100 years prior to. Now we've become what Dr. Carter G. Woodson is talking about in the miseducation of the Negro. Now we're becoming Negro because our defense is not what it was 200 years prior, 100 years prior. Now you've got this group of people now they've established a state called Oklahoma before making it Indian Territory. They've taken over all our commerce, which is our railroad tracks, which is those little stars in all these different states where they made their capitals. So that goes back to that projector illustration you gave. They just laid an invisible map over everything that we were doing. And now they've pretty much taken over probably, I'd say maybe 60% of our commerce on this land right before the turn of the century. And we still have unlawful Seminole wars going on. Keep that in mind, people.
So we have just a timeline of where we started and where we are at now. Started from 2 patents, or a patent with 2 companies, the London and the Plymouth, 1606, and expanding into this.
But it took 3 kingdoms to do it to us.
I'm about to say, remember, 3 kingdoms, 3 European nations fighting in unison to make sure this can be established. This company, present-day United States, can be established.
I think we drove enough nails in it. I think we've established this whole religion ideology. We can pinpoint exactly back to the Treaty of Paris, when that started getting imposed on this land, when the Christian majesty turned over to the king of Britannica, And that's where we get the Roman Catholicism and Christianity being ordained on this land. So we've hit a lot of different nails on the head historically, and law and history go together. History and religion do not go together. It took me a long time to understand that when my teachers were explaining that to me, because being once a nigger as well, I never was really fully indoctrinated into religion, but when your family is, and that's what they refer to, you know, we'll start off in American history and then pay attention to when you're talking to people, because they'll start off talking about American timeline history and then they'll divert into religion. It could be Moorish, it could be Christianity, it could be Catholicism, it can be people of the Most High, children of the Most High. It's hard for us to just stay with law and history. What was the law at that time frame? And that's basically what we're doing on this channel. Your belief system is irrelevant to the military records of what actually happened on the land.
Thanks. Great point. We can close it right there. Next week, we're going to get into it again. Definitely going to address, though, probably do that next week. You know, why we are afraid to fight for what's ours. We just showed you what happened over 200 plus years regarding these maps, and still happening today. So knowing this, you know, it's one thing to not know and not do anything, but once you know it, and you pretty much are choosing not to do anything. So we have to get down and address the elephant in the room. Why do our group of people choose not to fight for what's ours? So yeah, we definitely gonna have to have a heart to heart with our people and the viewer.